For my Solutionary project, I chose to address the problem of pedestrian fatalities. Through the process of addressing this problem, I learned a lot more about the issue than I had previously known. I learned about what different organizations and individuals are doing to address this problem, but mainly, I learned about the different factors that influence the likelihood of a pedestrian fatality. I realized that a major contributor to these unnecessary pedestrian deaths was a low pedestrian visibility. Streetlights on roadways don't always provide enough light for drivers to see pedestrians with as much ease as they would like. This leads to drivers not seeing pedestrians, especially at night, which increases the chances of pedestrian fatalities. I chose to address this problem by finding a way to increase pedestrian visibility. How I chose to do this was by making reflective slides. In today's society, a lot of people, especially in Hawaii, already wear slides frequently. If I could make slides that would reflect light, this would catch the eye of drivers and make them more aware of the pedestrian. Increasing the visibility that drivers have of pedestrians will make it less likely for pedestrian deaths to occur, thus solving the problem. My overall experience with the Solutionary project was positive. Through this project, I learned more about the issue of pedestrian deaths. I became more aware of what the problem was and also learned about different strategies that I could use in order to solve it. Through the Solutionary project, I also learned how to conduct research in a more efficient manner. Specifically, this project taught me how to use quotes and how to explain them effectively in order to get a point across. The project also taught me how to find information that was credible. After we had conducted our research about a specific area of the problem that we chose, we had to cite the article that we used. We also had to justify why the source was a credible one. Doing this taught me how to look for information that is credible and make sure that the websites that I am using are trustworthy. This will help me in the future by making sure that the information I use on any other projects are reliable. Lastly, the Solutionary project taught me how to build. For the project, we had to attempt to build the solution that we were proposing. So, I had to gather materials for my slides and attempt to build it. This taught me a lot of different things, such as how to gather these materials and how to assemble something that has never been invented before. This helped me be more creative because I had to find a way to build something without much help from online sources. My experience with the Solutionary project was positive in that I learned a lot of new skills that will be useful to me later in life. Something that I could have done better was to build my product better. Gathering the materials to build my reflective slides was the easy part, but assembling the slides was hard. To assemble the slides, I first made cutouts of reflective fabric in shapes that would fit over the slides. Then I decided that I would attach them with glue to the slides I had purchased. However, the cutouts that I made were not perfect and they did not cover the slides completely. This left a few open areas on the slides that were not reflective and also led to less reflectivity overall, which made the slides look a little messier than I intended. They also did not stick to the slides as much as I would have liked. I could have cut this reflective material better, which would have led to them fitting better on the slides. Another thing that I could have done better was research about organizations and agencies that are already working to solve this problem. When I was researching about who is already addressing this problem, I did find a few agencies and a few organizations, but my research on them could have been a little more in depth. For some of them, I didn't go into a lot of detail about what they were doing to solve the problem. I could have researched a little more about organizations that were trying to lower the number of pedestrian fatalities and go into more detail about how they were doing that. I could have researched better as well as built my product better, but building my product is where I could use the most improvement. If I had the chance to start over, I still would have picked this topic. I would have picked it because this topic is still very important to me. Personally, I live in an area where there are a lot of speed humps on every single street, and I'm not a fan of these speed humps because they slow all the drivers down and I would prefer not to speed up just to slow down very frequently. The main purpose of these speed humps in my area is to slow people down before sidewalks, so if a pedestrian is crossing, the car will be moving slower. This will increase the driver's chance of seeing the pedestrian, but at the cost of the driver slowing down very frequently. Since I am not a fan of these speed humps, I still would have chosen this topic in order to find an alternative solution to pedestrian fatalities other than speed humps. Another reason I still would have chosen this topic is because this issue is still very prevalent in today's society. During my research for this project, I found out that the number of pedestrian fatalities that occur is only going to increase. This makes this a growing problem, which is why it needs to be solved as soon as possible. Since this problem is so important and affects people all over the world, I still would have chosen this topic because it is a very serious issue. Many people and companies are already doing work in this field to try and solve this issue, but what they are doing is not always enough. Another reason I would have picked this issue if I could start over is to try and help these people who are already trying to solve the problem. Something that I could have done differently was spend more time building the product. I was mostly concerned with the research portion of this project and often neglected dedicating time to building the reflective slides itself. If I had dedicated more time to researching how to build the slides as well as building them, then they would have been built better. Another thing that I could have done differently was conduct more thorough research. A few of the websites that I used for my research logs had an overlap of information. For example, I didn't need two different websites to talk about nighttime pedestrian fatalities. Instead, I could have had two different websites where one talks about nighttime pedestrian fatalities while the other talks about something like how location plays a role in pedestrian fatalities. Having websites that each talk about a different area of the topic would have led to more diverse findings and less repetitive information. I could have conducted my research differently in order to gather a wider variety of statistics and information about the problem I'm solving, instead of using multiple websites to gather the same information. I could have researched more efficiently. Overall, my experience with the Solutionary project was positive. I got to learn many skills, such as how to conduct research about a problem, how to come up with a solution to a problem, and many more skills. It allowed me to research a problem that people encounter every single day, all over the world, and to give me a chance to try and solve that problem, all while teaching me many valuable skills along the way.